So I have a single node cluster here, and I'm going to show you how to deploy OpenFaaS with auto scaling from 0 to 1 and from 1 to 0 due to idle behavior of the function. First of all, I have deleted and purged the old Helm chart, and I'm installing two namespaces for OpenFaaS. I already actually have the Helm repo, and so what I now need to do is just generate a password to use with the basic authentication, and then run this install command. Now, one of the other flags that we need is right down here, 0 scale. Now this is what allows a component called the FaaS idler to exist, and rather than doing a dry run, to actually go ahead and update things. And so we're going to set this to dry run false. We're also going to set the interval and activity duration to something a bit faster, just for the sake of the demo. So I'm going to go through my command history. And what we have here is exactly the same as what I showed you, but with two changes. The idler is now set to not dry run, to actually do the changes. And we're setting the inactivity to run for a minute. Now I am going to call up the deployments and see how things are going. I'm also going to try and navigate to the home page. So we've got no functions right now. So let's just put something into here. Let's, if it's all ready, FaaS CLI deploy, store deploy. Let's put in node info. Now node info isn't going to scale to 0 by default. I think this is important for existing users, and that is what you'll see. So once you deploy this or you update, you will not suddenly have to worry about cold starts, warm starts, or anything like that. And the way that we actually handle this is by going ahead and adding a label and having these opt-in. So let's deploy Figlet, and we will see the first replica there. We'll invoke it. Let's get some activity into the logs. And then what we'll find is after the 1 minute interval of not invoking this, the replicas will go down to 0 because it will get scaled down, and the invoke button will go grey. And then that will give us the opportunity to invoke this function from outside the cluster and see it scale up again. So I'm going to attach to the logs of the idler, and we can see it's running through, it's finding two functions that have logs, node info and Figlet. In this example, it is detecting that node info has activity, but it's skipping it due to that label not being present. Now there's a diagram that explains how this works over in the FaaS idler repo. Now what you'll see here is that the FaaS idler is making a regular query to the Prometheus database. Prometheus is scraping the API gateway, and that's where we have all our metrics. So as soon as this rolls off from 0.018 for Figlet to 0, we'll see that the action will take place. The idler will call the API gateway scale endpoint, and this will actually go down to 0. And there we are. So we're now at the point where we've got 0 for the replica, 0 for the invocations over that last minute. And in the UI, it's now unavailable, 0 replicas, and we can't invoke it. However, we can actually invoke this from any endpoint through the API gateway. And we've just seen replicas is 1, replicas are ready, and it's been invoked. So this is how the idler works. Now one thing that you don't want to do is really make your limit as low as what we've done here, which is once every minute. It doesn't make sense. This is something that you may want to do every 5 or maybe every hour, so that you're giving the cluster enough time to collect the metrics in between deciding whether to scale up or down. And that concludes the demo, and what you will see is that the node info function still has its replica and it was never touched. So this is very much an opt-in. We don't want to break the existing experience, but we do allow you to benefit from being able to scale to 0. And if you do not want to use the idler, you actually can write your own controller or your own CLI, or you can scale to 0 using the kubectl CLI, and then the gateway will be able to scale that back up for you again. And that concludes the demo. So if you want to know more, you can head over to the docs site, docs.openfaas.com, and then under the architecture section, there's a detailed guide on exactly how this works. And you can also look at other things like how many min replicas and max replicas you want. In fact, these can work together. So you may have a minimum availability of 2, maximum of 20, but you also enable scaling to 0, which means you would go between 0 when idle and 2 when you have activity, going all the way up to 20 perhaps when things are ramping up.